So the Chiefs were thought to be without one of their top players for roughly a week, but he surprisingly returned to practice today, which is great news because he's going to be leaned on heavily during Rice's suspension, and there's already been multiple other injuries to that same position group. So I've got to talk about that, another potentially concerning injury that happened today, several roster moves, standout plays at training camp, and more. But first, how about those? All right, day 9 of Chiefs training camp had everyone returning from a light day of practice on Wednesday and a day off yesterday, so rested up and ready to go on a much cooler morning in St. Joe. For it being August 1st, you will not get better weather. It was between something like 65 to 70 degrees during practice, which is roughly 30 degrees cooler than it was out there just a few days ago. First up, we had some good injury news today as the 5th-round rookie linebacker Jeffrey Bassa returned after dealing with an ankle issue earlier on in the week. He even made a leaping INT that you can see here during 7-on-7, picking off Bailey Zappi, who by all accounts has been having a pretty good camp so far. Interceptions like this happen, even to the best of them, including Mahomes. He threw a couple today, I believe, with one of them going to Drue Tranquil. He picked Pat off here on this play as he tried to force one into Kelce in the middle of the field. And on the subject of injuries, Tranquil was scheduled to speak with the media today, but late in practice, he was seen shaken up on a play, going down onto one knee, ended up getting checked out and rode up to the facility in the front of the car and didn't return to practice. Well, because of that, Tranquil didn't speak with the media today after all, and Andy Reid said that Drue hurt his back. He called it a strain, describing it as almost a non-contact thing, which I don't really love hearing. Two things that always scare me: back issues and non-contact injuries. But hopefully this is more minor and precautionary than anything else. From what I understand, Drue was the only player dealing with an injury today that started out practice a full go. Then offensive tackle Jawan Taylor was back out there today after resting during Wednesday's light practice. He was reportedly nursing his knee after having a full practice in pads at the right tackle spot without splitting any reps with Jalen Moore. Even though he did return, Jalen Moore reportedly took a bunch of reps at right tackle today with the first team offense, and eventually Jawan did work in later on. Josh Simmons, on the other hand, held down the left tackle spot per usual, and then Kingsley was at left guard. And before I touch a bit more on injuries as well as a very welcomed and somewhat unexpected player returning, there were a few reps I saw from today's practice where Jalen Moore went up against Chris Jones, who lined up out wide and seemingly got the best of Jalen. One play might have been miscommunication more than anything as Mahomes was trying to roll out right, but it looked like Jalen Moore was not expecting that. Regardless, this is a great thing, in my opinion. Have these guys go up against Chris Jones because it's only going to make them better. In fact, that's the stuff Andy Reid loves to see, both sides of the ball making plays because it's great competition and it's helping players improve. Kingsley Suamataia is a guy that's gone up against the CEO of Sack Nation quite a bit at the left guard spot, and today he took every left guard rep with the first team offense. Andy Reid noted that Kingsley's getting better, battling and going back and forth, even holding his own at times against Chris Jones himself. Kingsley's been on a mission, likes the spot along the interior, and has taken to it well. They've been happy with what they've seen so far from Kingsley, yes, but also with the left tackle, Josh Simmons. Simmons told the media today he's still working and stacking bricks, working at being able to play faster. He's not afraid to ask questions, and even if he's pretty sure he knows the answer to them, he'll ask it anyway just to be sure because he wants to get brought up to speed ASAP. Josh loves competing against guys like George Karlaftis and Mike Dana, and the fact that you never know what Patrick Mahomes is going to do back there after the ball is snapped, it keeps Josh Simmons basically on his toes, ready to go from a technique standpoint to make sure Mahomes stays protected. Big Red said that Simmons is getting a lot of reps, which is important for a rookie. He's consistently working every day, not taking plays off, and is very willing to do it. Just got to keep going and stacking days. And then regarding Josh Simmons and his knee, Josh himself said he hasn't felt any issues with it at all. He's just working on maintaining it in recovery and being proactive more than anything else, which is good news for sure. Speaking of good news, I've got plenty of it via a welcomed return of a key player and several other standouts from today's practice. But first, with training camp well underway, the NFL season is basically here. I mean, the Chiefs' first preseason game is on August 9th, and then it's off to chase another Super Bowl ring. That's why you need to get yourselves some tickets sooner rather than later, and is where the sponsor of today's video, SeatGeek comes right in. They are the #1 rated ticketing app for a reason, boasting over 28 million downloads with more than 70,000 events listed on their site and app. And their app is extremely easy to use. In fact, I almost prefer it over their website. There's plenty of sporting events going on right now too. MLB, WNBA, MLS, NASCAR, and of course the NFL season will be here before we know it. You also can't forget about stuff like concerts, comedians, and festivals. Basically, you name it, there's a very good chance there's tickets for it on SeatGeek. They make the process super easy for you as well, rating tickets on a scale of 1 to 10 so you know you're getting a good deal. Just look for the green dots. Green means good, red means bad. Plus, every ticket is backed by their buyer guarantee, and you know I had to come through for you guys. You can use code HBTC10 for 10% off your next set of tickets on SeatGeek. That's 10% off any tickets with promo code HBTC10. Just make sure you click the link in the description to download the app and have the code automatically added to your account so you can use it later. Thanks again, SeatGeek. Alright, so the rest of the players that did not practice today were pretty expected, with those being wide receiver Hollywood Brown, ankle, Sky Moore, hamstring, tight end Jake Brenningstool, hamstring, safety Deon Bush, hamstring, and cornerback Christian Fulton, knee, who's still on the PUP list. Hopefully the ankle of Hollywood Brown isn't too bad, something he tweaked during Tuesday's practice. The same day, Sky Moore left early as well with the hamstring. You will also notice that several of the cornerbacks who were on the injury report for a while actually were not on there. And it's not because they are healthy, it's because they got waived with an injury designation, with those being Darius Rush and Eric Scott Jr. Back on Wednesday, KC had a couple wide receivers and several cornerbacks in for a tryout, and somehow there was a false report that circulated and was believed by everybody that the Chiefs signed wide receiver Kwame Lassiter II. I talked about that in my video on Wednesday, but somehow that did not happen. So I'm going to own that, say my bad. False report, no bueno. And instead, the new face seen out there today in the wide receiver room was Keyshawn Smith. He played college ball at Miami before transferring to SMU, having a career-high 527 yards and 5 touchdowns his last year in 2024. He went undrafted for the 2025 draft and signed with the Raiders back in May, but was just recently waived. So now, the 6'1", 188-pound wideout that runs a 4.39 40 is back with KC after being invited to their rookie minicamp for a tryout in May and not being selected. He's probably just a camp body that will be playing catch up with the playbook and struggle most likely, but those guys are needed with Hollywood and Sky out for now. From there, the Chiefs added 2 defensive backs to the roster as well, in a Johnny Carter and a ZZ Hearn. Carter is 6'2", 200 pounds and appeared in 11 games last year with the University of Houston, and then Azizi, he played college ball for UCLA back in 2022. From there, he signed with the Raiders after going undrafted, but has since bounced around to several practice squads: Patriots, Panthers, and Giants. So in summary, the Chiefs ended up waiving 3 players. Punter Eddie Chaplitsky, didn't mention that earlier, but that was one of them. Then Darius Rush and Eric Scott Jr., and signed wide receiver Keyshawn Smith, and defensive backs a Johnny Carter and a ZZ Hearn. And then one player who was very notably not on the injury list today was wide receiver Xavier Worthy. Wednesday, the team reported Worthy was in concussion protocol, which was a little surprising because, again, he banged his head early on Tuesday, went and got checked out, cleared, and then practiced in full the rest of the day. So I assumed he developed symptoms and he's probably going to miss around a week of practice with him being in the protocol. But he was actually out there today, running routes and catching passes like this one near the left sideline, making sure he had possession and both feet in. Well, here's why Worthy was able to return so quickly. Andy Reid shared after practice that he ended up not having a concussion. They had both the NFL and their own docs involved with the clearing, but Worthy had a little liquid in his ear that was throwing off his balance and his equilibrium. They took care of that, though. Andy Reid said it was a positive thing, and the whole time X was saying, I don't feel like I have a concussion, but the checks were because of his balance being a bit off due to the liquid in his ear. So all that to say, crisis averted and Worthy is all good to go. Rashee Rice is another receiver that's good to go, at least until he's suspended, making several plays during team period today, including this one where he hauled in a pass from a scrambling Mahomes and hit the spin cycle on Trent McDuffie for extra yards. Let's go. A great play there for wide receiver 1. Andy shared today that Rice has been growing both on and off the field. He's learned from his mistakes off the field, and then on the field, he's been full speed ahead. No pun intended.
On the field, he's just been full speed ahead. Yeah.
Okay, thanks, Coach.
No pun intended.
I think Andy realized what he said there, but it was too little too late. Kelce is also looking quick, having a great camp, and could be seen winning this 1v1 rep against safety Brian Cook. That late move as he turned inside was nice. Mahomes could later be seen hitting Kelce up the seam for a perfectly timed connect, with Nick Bolton trailing in coverage, and I think that Mahomes to Kelce connection is going to continue plenty of times in crucial moments this season. The 4th round rookie Jalen Royals is putting in work as well, especially with Sky Moore and Hollywood Brown out with injuries. He caught a great back shoulder ball here from Mahomes up the left sideline with Najee close in coverage, and is working more in with the ones than some anticipated this early on in camp. Chris Roland Wallace snagged himself an INT off Gardner Minshew as he threw a somewhat meh deep ball into double coverage, but hey, Roland Wallace continues making plays at camp as he also had back-to-back days with diving PBUs earlier on this week. Next up, the running back room is starting to take shape as far as how things could play out this year, so I definitely want to get into that. But before I do, Andy Reid touched on the fact that every year some guys on the roster will make it because of special teams play. There's always a couple guys like that, and one of them could very well be wide receiver Nikko Remigio. In fact, I'd be willing to put quite a bit of money on it at this point in time. Andy said Nikko is very competitive, with every receiver trying to make one of those 6 or 7 spots. He has the punt return thing that goes into his favor, but there's other guys in the rotation fighting in as well. Well, Nikko spoke to the media today, and when told that Dave Toub called him the best returner they have, Nikko said that was his first time hearing that. In spite of that, he takes it with a grain of salt because if you get comfortable, you're going to get got. Quote, I worked too damn hard to get to this point in my career, to get to year 3 to let it slip through my fingers. He still keeps that dog mentality of being an undrafted guy that barely made the roster and is fighting every day to earn that spot. And I do appreciate that mindset about Nikko. He's been working in a bit more as well with the top offense because of the injuries to that room, and Remigio shared that his threshold for stress in extreme circumstances has been pushed so much further because of how hard training camp was last year. From there, he saw a lot of high stress moments in the playoffs, and that's helped him take things even further during this training camp. He's more familiar with the offense now as well, working to leverage his strengths to manipulate defenders in space and get open for Mahomes. At this point, I don't see, again, how Nikko does not make the 53-man roster unless maybe running back Rashee Smith just straight up goes insane as the team's punt returner during the preseason. And then real quick, a bunch of you have been asking for an update on Elijhah Badger, the undrafted wideout that the Chiefs signed at the conclusion of the draft. Well, he's been working in mainly with the third-team offense, thought to have had a standout play today deep down the right sideline with Najee in coverage, but if you slow this play down, yes, initially it looked like an incredible one-handed catch. It was a great effort, but he sadly was not able to haul it in because if you look at it slowed down, the ball bounced off the ground basically. He tried to hide it, but it was incomplete. Now, another interesting thing to take note of is the running back room. Carter Price of Arrowhead Addict mentioned that he believes Kareem Hunt is going to be the Chiefs' third down back this season. During teams, the order of touches in that room was Pacheco, 1A, Hunt, 1B, Elijah Mitchell, 2, Rashee Smith, 3, and then Carson Steele last. On the subject of Steele, though, real quick, look at this back shoulder pass he hauled in from Gardner Minshew. Holy smokes, what a nice way to maintain focus all the way to the ground. Impressive. Anyway, Carter said he labeled Pacheco and Hunt as 1A and 1B because they split the majority of the carries. But on top of that, this play here shows Kareem working in and catching a pass from Mahomes on a check down. But this is where the combo of Kareem Hunt being the team's third down back does make sense. The guy is a vet, knows the system even more now after being here last season. He's lost a little weight, so he's got some speed and quickness back, and combine that with the fact that he's excellent at forcing missed tackles and get the extra yard or 2 needed. Checking the ball down to Kareem on a third and manageable doesn't seem like a bad idea at all. Plus, he's probably the most dependable option right now for pass pro with his years of experience in the league, and sometimes we forget the damage he could do in the pass game earlier on in his career. Is he who he once was? No, but I do believe this is the best Kareem we are going to see in the last few years. Then just imagine this scenario. It's 3rd and 2, Kareem Hunt's in the backfield. Are they going to hand it off to him where he has a good chance of converting, or fake the handoff to set something up off play action and still have the option to check it down to Kareem in the pass game anyway? Honestly, I think Kareem is your third down and short yardage back for 2025. Maybe Rashee Smith is the third down back in future years, but honestly, I love the idea of Hunt filling in that role this year, as opposed to having to be the workhorse guy like he did in 2024 because of the injuries to that room. But what do you guys think? Do you like the idea of Hunt working in that role, or do you prefer somebody else? Let me know your reasons either way as to why in the comments down below, and until next time, let's go Let's freaking go. How about those?